Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here for another live WAM news show. And I got a lot to do tonight. I'm heading out to Canada right away, so I'm not going to make this a longer show like I usually do. I usually do kind of longer shows and I need to, and I got a lot to do. So I want to get straight to the breaking news. And for those wondering, those just tuning in, those seeing this, make sure to press like below. And also, when I open these reports and close them off, don't go anywhere. I will still be here. I am simply recording these reports live and then cutting them out later to put up individually. It's an easier way to reach people these days on YouTube as we are so heavily shadow banned. Anyway, I want to get to the lead breaking news. Many of you know that recently we had a massive terrorist shooting in New Zealand, in Christchurch. Absolutely horrific. You have to condemn it. I mean, it's so horrible to think that an individual is deranged enough to massacre so many people. Not even just one, but 49 people dead. It's so unbelievably disgusting. And those that are defending it, you don't defend the murder of innocent people, regardless of ideology, regardless of what you think of their ideology. It's just such a disgusting thing that we see so many people defending this. And obviously, with this kind of thing happening, like, yes, some people will say it's a false flag. I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. Some strange things in the video. I was forced to have to watch that video this morning when I got up. And it was a horrible way to start a day. I can't imagine how the families feel. A woman screaming for help as she's slaughtered at the curb outside the mosque. Horrible. Absolutely horrible. And we've become so desensitized to all of this. And honestly, this guy didn't even know if he was a conservative or a Christian or whatever. He liked China's government. There's no reason to place blame on a political ideology here outside of the fact that he did call himself a fascist. But blame individuals for what they do. This guy was obviously mentally deranged and has brought people like PewDiePie into this. And I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like for him too, on top of all of that. Because obviously PewDiePie has nothing to do with this. It's just so absurd. Anyway, I want to get into this story a bit because guess what? The government, you know, that organized crime racket that caused all these divide and conquer things to happen and, you know, pumps people through or with pharmaceutical drugs that they monopolize at state level and all that kind of stuff. Well, the government wants to restrict guns further in New Zealand now. As this article out of the Guardian says, New Zealand Prime Minister vows to toughen gun control laws after Christchurch attack. And as the article goes into, New Zealand's gun control laws will be strengthened following the massacre of 49 people in Christchurch mosques, the country's Prime Minister has said. Jacinda Ardern said at a press conference earlier on Saturday that she would consider banning semi-automatic firearms altogether after the alleged gunman behind the shootings obtained 5 guns legally. And I quote, "I can tell you one thing right now. Our gun laws will change," said Ardern. "There have been attempts to change our laws in 2005, 2012, and after an inquiry in 2017. Now is the time for change," she says. Ardern said the alleged shooter was found to have used 5 guns that he appeared to legally own under a Category A license obtained in November 2017. He appeared to have begun buying guns the following month, she said. The guns taken from the alleged perpetrator included 2 semi-automatic guns and 2 shotguns, the Prime Minister said. Answering questions from reporters, Ardern said all options to restrict gun violence would be considered. New Zealand allows ownership of semi-automatic guns frequently described as assault rifles that are banned in countries such as Australia and the UK. Guns can be bought online and anyone aged 16 with an entry-level license can possess them. The Prime Minister said early on Saturday that she had received messages of condolence from around the world and international leaders, including Donald Trump, the U.S. president, who has been criticized for his hostility towards Muslims. Of course, they bring that into it. They always try to politicize this in the mainstream media. Always. And I quote, "He very much wished for his condolences to be passed on to New Zealand," said Ardern. He asked what support the U.S. could provide. "My message was sympathy and love for all Muslim communities." Asked how Trump responded, Ardern said he acknowledged that and agreed. 4 people were arrested following the attack, and 1 was subsequently released. Ardern said that person was an armed member of the public who was trying to help police at the scene. An Australian man in his 20s has been charged with murder and is due to appear in court on Saturday. Ardern followed law enforcement in not naming him or 2 other suspects who were being questioned. Good. I don't want this guy to really be talked about, so I'm going to skip that. People can look into that themselves. I just don't want to give a scumbag a name. Ardern described the main suspect as having visited New Zealand sporadically during international travels. They were not a resident of Christchurch, she said. Investigators were said to be trying to establish whether or not the 2 people arrested were involved in the attacks. Ardern said that while New Zealand's intelligence agencies had recently increased their monitoring of far-right extremists, the alleged gunman had not come to the attention of law enforcement and had no criminal record. Now, I want to break away from this article for a moment to also talk about the gun laws in New Zealand overall. See, the gun laws in New Zealand, while they're not as tight, obviously, as Australia and places like that, where, by the way, Australia, the rate of murder and theft and violence and all that went down at a smaller scale than the worldwide statistics. So people keep saying that their gun bans help, but it really didn't. Statistically, it actually hurt if you actually consider it versus the per capita rate worldwide. They mention how there's nearly 250,000 licensed firearm owners and use New Zealand's estimated 1.5 million firearms. And they talk about how there's been past restrictions and gun licenses are issued at the discretion of the police in New Zealand, provided the police consider the person to be in good standing, etc. And see, here's a big issue here. The government, which is the biggest massacre murderer in the world, an organized crime racket, lectures people on violence and how we need to stop murder by controlling them more. Look, this guy walked around the streets. I'll get to these stats in a second. This guy walked around the streets, killing people, going into this mosque, spent several minutes, I believe over 6 minutes, shooting people, then got into his car, drove away, was shooting people through his windows, went to another mosque. I mean, it just... What boggles my mind is that, first of all, no one was able to stop him, and the government thinks that the best reaction to this is to make sure that less people can defend themselves in the future. The police couldn't get there in 6 minutes. The police, in fact, got there several minutes after he had already left. As you can see in the video, if you watched it, if you can find it, he's driving, and you hear first responders going by, and what happens? They don't catch him. He's able to continue on shooting people. Look, this guy was a sick scumbag, and making people more defenseless is not how you deal with a problem like this. Acknowledging that individuals that are mentally deranged going around shooting people based on also fear-mongering that has led to that point of this guy going completely crazy and not seeming to care much and kind of giggling a bit and having a bit of adrenaline but not seeming to have any remorse at all while massacring and slaughtering innocent people. This notion that taking guns away from individuals who could have stopped this in the first place is somehow a way to aid the problem. That is not a solution. That is only making people more dependent on the state and more helpless when it comes to these attacks. Government is simply organized crime masquerading as being helpful. Meanwhile, the more helpful they are, the more helpless the populace. This isn't rocket science. Looking at these laws here, or these stats going around the world, Dana Lash has a great debunking article on her website, danalashradio.com, where it goes into this. Crime has plummeted in every state which has implemented concealed carry, and I've gone into this before, But the NSC estimates that in 1995, firearm accidents accounted for 1.5% of fatal accidents. Larger percentages of fatal accidents were accounted for by motor vehicle accidents, 47%, falls 13.5%, poisonings 11.4%, drowning 4.8%, fires 4.4%, and choking on an ingested object. Examining all the multiple victim public shootings in the United States from 1977 to 1999 show that on average, states that adopt right to carry laws experience a 60% drop in the rates at which the attacks occur and a 78% drop in the rates at which people are killed or injured from such attacks. And violent crime rates are highest overall in states with laws severely limiting or prohibiting the carrying of concealed firearms for self-defense, according to the FBI Uniform Crime Reports 1992, which leads into today and has not changed, by the way. The total violent crime rate is 26% higher in the restrictive states than in the less restrictive states. The homicide rate is 49% higher in the restrictive states than in the states with less restrictive CCW laws, etc. So again, taking away people's ability to defend themselves isn't going to help them defend themselves more. It's not rocket science. Again, they're trying to make it a political issue. Of course, within moments, the government comes in as per usual saying, we will take away more people's rights to help you become more dependent. It's so sad. It's so sad to watch. My thoughts and prayers go out to the families of all the victims involved, the people who've had to witness this. It's just a horrible thing. No one should have to see that kind of thing take place. Obviously, the people playing politics, the guy said he was anti-Marxist, but then also supported Marxist governments, said he wasn't sure if he's a Christian and would let people know when he finds out. So people claiming he's a Christian, no. People saying he's a conservative, he's attacking conservatives in his manifesto. It's just a way for the media to latch onto something and utilize something for their own benefit, for their talking points, and it's sad and disgusting and sick. Anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, guys. So that's my first story that I decided to go through. We got more. This won't be a super long show today. I want to get to as many things as possible while I have time. I am running to Canada right away. 59 out of 115,000 people watching the video live. Okay, makes sense. Jay Zima says, hit the like button, everyone. I agree. Hit the like button. It helps. It really does help a lot. Let's see. Big Up Boy 69. Aren't you the same guy that publicly supported Gary Marshall and the Manitoba Party referred to Muslim refugees as rapefugees? I never supported Gary Marshall. I'm not sure what you're talking about. Never support any politician. The only politician I've ever kind of liked is Ron Paul, and more for just because he used a stage to talk about things. But no, I've never supported Gary Marshall and the Manitoba Party. My business partner tried to, like John Snyson, tried to start the party. I can't say I 100% agree, but I mean, the idea was to just make it like taxation is theft, all that kind of stuff. And people took it over, and you ended up with a bunch of people trying to play politics, and it just destroyed the whole thing. And it was just another lesson in how politics kills, and politics is a cancer, and politics cannot be saved by politics. But anyway, no, I never supported Gary Marshall. Let's see. Rebel Glory says, Josh is in the house. Thank you. I am in the house. I am in a house right now at this moment, as a matter of fact. Lol, mentally deranged, very true. Yeah, well, absolutely. You have to be mentally deranged to kill innocent people. Briggs says, Dr. No, absolutely. I agree. Ron Paul was great in that sense, voting no on everything, except for a couple of things which I have actually personally spoken to him about, the things I disagree with, because I like to be honest, I'm no fanboy. I just really enjoy Ron Paul. He's awesome. But yeah, he made mistakes. I have my picture with him just recently. I saw him again in Acapulco, Mexico. You could see on our Subscribe page a picture of me with him. Great guy. Anyway, but we all have our differences. But I think he did a lot of good. Subscribe World Alternative Media, if you're wondering. We're going to be doing subscriber-only content there, and it really helps for anyone that pledges. You'll get content that you won't see on YouTube, because YouTube is just shadow banning us like crazy lately. Hi, Aaron. Aaron Honch sent $5 in the super chat. Hello, thank you very much. I appreciate it. She's basically a neighbor of mine. I'm always happy to see Aaron and Kingsley online. Kingsley says I took that pic. You took that pic with Yakov's camera? What? The picture was by Yakov Markel. Anyway, I got to get to more news stories. I'm already tired. Like, I've been having trouble lately, not getting ridiculously tired from everything. I'm easily tired these days. I think it has something to do with trying to keep up with the shadow banning. But today, by the way, new video up with John McAfee. always interesting. Big shout out to Chris Rice Crypto on YouTube, who is one of our contributors and did that video for us. Anyway, I'm gonna get to some more stories here. I just want to get it up and ready to go. I'm gonna get into I'm getting into issues that are like 100% shadow banned, like guns and terrorism. And now I'm looking at my stories that I have lined up here. Cannabis. I just can't win. Can't win. You know what? I'll go with this one because I did promise to do that. It's kind of in the thumbnail for the video, so we will go with this story. Anyway. And again, don't go anywhere once I finish off this report because I'm still here. I just got to close it off to be cut out later. Anyway, and a 3, 2... All right, so more news on Justin Trudeau. It's always entertaining to go into these stories, mostly because, well, I mean, the guy, I can't imagine he knows how to put on his own shoes. You know, Sophie probably sings him lullabies to get to sleep at night, thinking about all the money and pay for play and all that kind of stuff. He has a lot on his little tiny mind, so he needs to get little lullabies from his wife, and maybe she'll buy him a new pair of socks if he's good. Anyway, as this article from, I think, Montreal blog, mtlblog.com says, new poll shows Trudeau will likely lose to Conservatives in upcoming elections. And as we've gone into before, I mean, Justin Trudeau is losing massive amounts of support, massive female support, massive support across the board. And a lot of people are looking at Andrew Scheer and a lot of people at Maxime Bernier. Anyway, let's look at this article here. As the article goes into, with all the drama of the SNC-Lavalin scandal, it's not actually surprising that more and more Canadians are looking outside the Liberal Party for future federal governance. And in recent national poll done by Campaign Research, 43% believe the Liberal government has done a bad job of dealing with the aftermath and are now leaning towards the Conservatives for leadership. See a breakdown of numbers in the tweet below. And going down here, you got the numbers here. Polling Canada, federal polling, CPC 36%, LPC 30%, NDP 16%, GPC 10%, BC or BQ, Bloc Québécois 4%, and People's Party 2%. I'm not entirely sure about that. That seems like a strange poll, but nonetheless, that's what Polling Canada got. I can't see the People's Party of Canada being that low. But anyway, as we go on here, we are in an election year, so when approval ratings jump around as they have been, it's worth taking notice, as it could indicate how the country is going to vote when presented with a ballot. And if the election were to happen tomorrow, it looks like we would end up with a Conservative minority, which could mean Andrew Scheer as Prime Minister. Again, could mean Andrew Scheer. That's a weird sentence. Lots of typos in these. Anyway, I mentioned Scheer because of the support he has across the prairies, which is where most of the Conservative support is seen in this most recent poll. And I continue here. According to a Campaign Research, the divide in support between the Liberals and the Conservatives is seemingly along geographical lines, with Atlantic Canada and Quebec continuing to maintain confidence in the Liberals. However, everything west of La Belle Province, including Ontario and BC, is presenting increased confidence in the Conservatives. Andrew Scheer is in particular is showing an increased approval rating, up 3% to 19% this month. And even more interesting is that Jody Wilson-Raybould continues to hold the highest approval rating when compared to the three main party leaders, Trudeau, Scheer, and Singh. I think I know where this is going. Where Trudeau may have held a 41% approval rating in November, he's now sitting at a 31%. Wilson-Raybould, in comparison, holds a 45% approval rating with Canadians who appreciate the job she is doing as a member of Parliament and former Attorney General. These numbers are, of course, based off of those respondents who were decided in their voting intentions. Now, the thing is, we can never trust polls. Let's be honest here. I mean, I like to think that most people don't like Justin Trudeau, but then I also see the comments on some of my videos. It's like, whoa, man. And then comments on the other side that are over the top, too. Look, the answer is in politics. Cancer doesn't cure cancer. Government doesn't cure government. I've gone over this a million times. Collectivism begets collectivism. You can cut 95% of the tumor off and leave 5%, but that 5% will grow. I'm getting really sick and tired of having to repeat myself when it comes to the fact that we cannot trust government to fix the problems of government. And it's like, blame everything on the Liberals, then blame everything on the Conservatives, then blame everything on the Liberals again. Andrew Scheer is like a total liberal, by the way. He is a leftist. If you actually look at his policies, they're such milquetoast, watered down, as Tim Moen, the leader of the Libertarian Party, went into in an interview with me recently, who's actually consistent and isn't actually doing it to win, but actually doing it to be able to spread a message and stay consistent in his principles. And there's something really wrong with the populists just repeating themselves like Groundhog Day over and over again. They don't know how to be consistent. The vast majority of people repeat history over and over again. I don't like this guy. He's mean and stupid and dumb and blah, blah, blah. Let's go to this next person. Look, Trudeau's a terrible person. Trudeau's done terrible things. SNC-Lavalin is a great example of one of many, and it's tiny in comparison to all the controversies that he's involved in and the fact that he's an organized crime boss to begin with. But you don't replace the organized crime boss with another organized crime boss and think the crime is going to end. It won't. It'll continue. It'll continue and perpetuate forever. This is a Hegelian dialectic of problem, reaction, solution, repeat for eternity. So what can be done? Well, I think people should look at themselves as individuals, start repeating history over and over again, be self-sustainable, financially responsible in general, because after all, responsibility is the hallmark of freedom itself. That's all freedom is, responsibility. You do not designate freedom. You do not regulate freedom. You don't legislate freedom. Freedom is something that it doesn't necessarily come from within, but it is enforced as an individual from within. You defend yourself against incoming threats and the government, organized crime, robbers on the streets. You decide when to give in and when to defend yourself, and that's up to you as individuals. But begging government to solve your problems won't do anything for you and will only perpetuate this madness forever, as we've seen going back to ancient Greece. It never ends. It's just this constant need to beg government for help. And good ideas don't require force. You cannot force other people to live by your rules. It's not moral, it's not logical, it's not sustainable. Free markets, individual demand on the market is far more sustainable and innovative and constructive and peaceful than having this organized crime racket that kills millions of people, legislate what's right and wrong. It's absurd. So I'm not saying no government. I'm saying no enforced government, coercive rule. People can have their voluntary governance structures and everything, but don't force me to give away half of my money, more than half of my money, 65% of my money in many cases in Canada on average, where we are so taxed to death, and taxation is theft, folks. They're extorting you to pay off the interest on the debt at the creation of currency at the central bank, which has nothing to do with even the politicians. It's just designated or legalized by the politicians through legal tender laws. And at the same time, you have all these regulations and taxes pushing small businesses out of the markets, propping up major monopolies. It's a horrible thing, and it just perpetuates forever, and it'll never end as long as we keep going, like clockwork. Well, this politician sucks, so maybe another politician will help us. Oh, that guy's nice. Oh, that guy seems to want change and stuff. What campaign has ever been run where it isn't about quote-unquote change? Maybe the change that people are truly looking for is not within the governance structures of the world, these coercive organized crime cartels. Perhaps that change comes from within, and you're looking outside instead of within for help. It's often what you see with drug addicts and alcoholics, many religions across the board. People are looking outside instead of within in order to solve their problems, because they'd rather be dependent and feel comfortable in their complacency and apathy and laziness than actually look for the root of the problems and solve them as individuals. And that is such a huge problem going forward. So we need to solve that, folks. And also there's blockchain alternatives that are decentralized, properly fundamentally useful, that can replace all these things that we call government and banks. And someday it'll unwittingly replace all this, and people won't even realize. It doesn't matter if we're all in agreement. We will all realize one day that, hey, there's no government. What happened is we can do an incremental frog boil for the sake of convenience, just like the tyrants can use the same tactic against us. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right, another report done. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Let's see. Parshant Gupta 20066 says, "Hi Josh, great to see you. Great to see you as well." Doug 209 says, "I always vote for change and stuff." Yeah, change and stuff. Yeah. Jerry K or Gary K says, "Politicians are not and never were the answer." Absolutely agree, Briggs. Let's boil some frogs. Well, we've been doing that since ancient Greece, and again, the frogs still haven't realized they're being boiled. But we're almost to the point of being fried, and then we end up in Japanese food. Anyway, so let's go into the next story here. By the way, super chats, go to the top. I will be able to see our super chats more likely, and it'll keep us alive as we're being heavily demonetized, censored, and shadow banned. It really is a lifesaver to see super chats. They're basically, literally the super chats have been the main thing keeping me going lately, because I'm not making any money off of YouTube at all. And it's not about making money. I never did this to make money, but I did this to spread a message of truth and freedom and liberty and responsibility, etc., and give people voices. But at the moment, I'm completely shadow banned. I'm not reaching people, and it's in some cases reaching less than 1% of our audience, which is just ridiculous. Here's our Bitcoin address, by the way, for anyone interested. You can donate there, and we also have a Subscribe Star page, which I mentioned earlier, which you can find there. I'm going to put my laptop down here, another one. And yeah, again, super chats are a major help for us. They do wonders for us. So we will be doing subscriber-only content on Subscribe Star for those interested. Now, back to doing stories. This one's going to be a bit different. I'm going to skip out of the cannabis one for now. I saw this story the other day, and it inspired me a little bit, because you know how I've been looking into ancient civilizations. Anyway, I'll just do the story. I want to get into this, and we'll get going. Again, if you see me sign out and everything, that doesn't mean that the video is done. I'm still here to answer your questions. I'm just gonna do this real quickly. This report, cut it out after and use it. Make sure to press like on the video. It gets us seen. Anyway, here we go. And as this article out of geek.com shows, scientists wake up ancient woolly mammoth cells in high-tech experiment. It sounds like science fiction, but it's not. I mean, we actually are seeing zombie woolly mammoths slowly, incrementally created. I'm sure they actually probably are created at this point in a weird government science lab somewhere. I'm not going to go full Alex Jones on you guys. But yeah, as many of you guys know, I've been looking into ancient civilizations lately, and this plays into what I've been talking about significantly, because I'll go into that in a moment, but going to the end of the Younger Dryas period, the end of ancient civilizations that had high technology. We're not talking about aliens here, but nonetheless, there were amazing societies that existed that had incredible technology. There's no joke there. There's no wondering about. I mean, this is a fact. We have seen this to be true with the pyramids, with the Sphinx, water erosion, and the dating of these places, Göbekli Tepe. There's no doubt that we are seeing evidence of ancient civilizations, where less ancient civilizations built on top of them, like in Machu Picchu and Pumapunku, etc. We recently went into Pumapunku with Brian Forster here at WAM in an interview that you should all check out as well on our channel. But anyway, let's get into the story about the mammoths, then I'll go into this further in a moment. As the story goes into, scientists in Japan have awakened 28,000-year-old cells from a woolly mammoth that lived on our planet years ago, and their observations could provide a better understanding of extinct animals' lives. The team, which published their findings in scientific reports, recovered cell nuclei from the remains of yucca, a preserved mammoth that was discovered in Siberia's permafrost 9,000 years ago. Siberia's permafrost 9 years ago. Phys.org reported, while there won't be any woolly mammoths rising from the grave soon, the experiment could help scientists explore alternative resurrection methods in the future. And you could see this little post by Stephen Hurst here on Twitter. Researchers observed biological activity after transplanting cell nuclei from yucca, the woolly mammoth, dead for 28,000 years, into mice oocytes. I'm not a scientist, folks. Do not quote me on that pronunciation. Anyway, for the experiment, the scientists inserted muscle cell nuclei from the woolly mammoth carcass into mouse cells and observed for signs of biological activity, Newsweek reported. First, an analysis showed that nucleus-like structures were present in the animal's muscle tissue, and then additional tests revealed that its remains were not contaminated for 28,000 years. The team collected 88 nucleus-like structures from the creature and then placed them into mouse oocytes, the cell that can split to form an ovum in the ovaries. Anyway, with a live cell imaging technique, the team watched to see what would happen to the awakened cells, quote unquote. And it shows yucca surrounded by exhibition staff. And I quote, the mammoth nuclei showed the spindle assembly, histone incorporation, and partial nuclear formation. However, the full activation of nuclei for cleavage was not confirmed, the team wrote in their study. And another scientific study of cleavage. Anyway, continuing on. We are yet to see even cell divisions, Kai Miyamoto, a member of the team at Kindai University in Western Japan, told AFP. I have to say we are very far from recreating a mammoth. Even though the team could generate cell division needed, the team couldn't generate cell division needed for a woolly mammoth rebirth, the team aims to try new approaches to bring the creatures back to life down the line. However, they'll need better preserved nuclei and additional experiments to reach this key biological milestone. And I quote, the results presented here clearly show us again the de facto impossibility to clone the mammoth by current NT nuclear transfer technology. Our approach paves the way for evaluating the biological activities of nuclei in extinct animal species, the scientists concluded in the study. Now, I have to thank Graham Hancock for making me aware of that article on this story. Now, again, they say it's not exactly a success story, but they are really getting close to being able to do this on an official scale. Now, we have to remember going back to the 1940s and the stealth fighters that were built by the military at that time, and us only finding out about it in the 90s. There's a lot to be said about classified documentation and a lot of theorizing about potential, cell or the ability to bring the dead back to life, making mice into robots that come back to life with certain electroshocks in their brain, like crazy stuff that it's straight out of science fiction and it's actually happening to a certain extent. And I wanted to go into this whole thing with mammoths, and a lot of you are wondering, why are you talking about mammoths? Well, back at the around the time of the Younger Dryas period, in North America, there's giant sloths, there were mammoths, there's North American camels and lions, etc., that all just went extinct randomly at the same time, around the same time as the Clovis people. And I've gone into the meteor that hit Greenland at the Hiawatha crater, and as well as potential plasma bursts around the world, which we have evidence of in many locations around the world. And the case of the mammoth is interesting because we have to remember that mammoths, many of them were frozen, like solid, just within flash frozen. They still had undigested food in their stomach when they died. How does that make any sense to anyone? I find it very interesting that we have this evidence and people just look the other way because they want to go by the academic research that's mainstream, that's been going around for so long. And I just find it interesting. These kinds of stories amaze me because they really go to show that we do not know everything about our history. We've been lied to a lot about our history as well. And when, again, you have all these animals that were killed at the snap of a finger, you have to wonder why. And then it all incorporates into things like Atlantis, strangely, and all these stories of these great floods around the world and the ancient cataclysm, which basically every culture talked about at the same time. This is a real issue that we need to be studying more, because if we figure out the background of human history, we can likely figure out a little bit about what might happen in the near future. I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of, as I think it was Mark Twain who said, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And there's absolutely no doubt that history does indeed rhyme. I am looking at this article right now, trying to bring up something that I wanted to go into earlier that I don't want to forget about, because, oh yeah, that's right, Siberia. So something that Graham Hancock went into in his book, Fingerprints of the Gods, really stood out to me, and he goes into it in The Magicians of the Gods too. It's the fact that it's like crustal displacement, this theory that the mantle moved over, or like these continents moved over the mantle, over the crust of the earth, like this shift that happened at the same time as a polar shift as well. We had a magnetic polar shift in the planet where we moved over a certain amount of degrees, and we saw places like Antarctica, where on the coast close to South America, there were tropical habitats that at one point were not iced over, and there's evidence of that. And if you look at the Piri-Reis map and stuff, you could see evidence of stuff that people could only find with thermal technology today, and somehow they did this in the 1100s and again in 1500s and 1800s, drawing out these maps perfectly, which apparently came off of scrolls in libraries that they copied off of older maps to go back further. It all seems to bring us to the last ice age, interestingly, just like the correlation with the pyramids and the stars in 10,800 BC, etc., and about 26 or 2500 BC as well in other chambers. Very strange. And the 26,000 year progression, and the every 13,000 years, the rise and fall of Orion. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. And the Egyptians somehow knowing that Sirius was A and B, was a big star with a smaller star going around it, a huge anomaly. But Siberia was at one point, it had somewhat of a tropical climate. There's evidence that there were parts of Siberia that are now completely frozen over, for the most part, that had somewhat of a tropical climate. So something huge happened to change that. Something massive happened to change the entire climate of the planet, all in a very short amount of time, around the end of the Younger Dryas period. There's a lot of evidence that a comet caused the Younger Dryas period to begin in the first place, and then there's a lot of evidence that a comet or asteroid or just a plasma burst, there's multiple theories, ended it at the same time. And then we saw waters rise throughout the world, half the world on fire over decades and decades of time. And of course we have the Mayans and the Incas and the Olmecs, allegedly, according to other ancient civilizations. Then the Egyptians, the Sumers, so many civilizations around the world, everything from China and India, Indonesia. I can go on and on. All talking about this catastrophe, this cataclysm that hit the earth and changed it forever. And then it plays perfectly into the Noah's Ark story and the epics of Gilgamesh, and then the story of Atlantis that comes from Plato and Solon out of the Critias and Timaeus stories of Atlantis and what they were told by old Egyptian elders at the time. Now, I'm going to the reshot structure in the next few months. to study it on the ground. I'll be the second person ever to really go and study that anomaly myself, because there's a lot of theories that Atlantis is the reshot structure. And look, at this point, we have too much evidence. 23.5 kilometers around, just like Plato said in Critias and Timaeus. Opens to the south to water, mountains to the north with rivers, fresh water in the center of the rings. Fresh water and then salt water in the outer rings. So much evidence, and then ancient maps show the Atlas Mountains, and what's Atlantis? The land of Atlas. King Atlas is mythical god, and then we have the Atlas Mountains, and we have, before the story of Atlantis, allegedly, the Atlantic Ocean first being called the Atlantic Ocean, the Atlantic Sea. I don't know. There's something strange going on. There's evidence that rivers went to the site of the reshot structure, and I want to find out myself, and I'm going to go there, and I'll be, one of the first people ever to actually examine the site. So I'm going with a whole bunch of people. I'll stay safe. Don't worry about it. I want to document this thoroughly and break it down for all of you to all see. So anyway, I'm rambling on. I had no idea where I was going with this report today. I just felt like rambling on a bit with this article about mammoths because I find it interesting. How could the origins of human civilization not be interesting to anyone? I mean, seriously, who isn't wondering who built the pyramids? Oh no, it's just slaves. No, already debunked. How do they lift these massive rocks, and why did they when they could have just cut them into multiple pieces? A grand gallery of it, the Valley Temple, the Sphinx. Mayan civilization, Olmec civilization, Inca, and Aztec, all of them saying that they got it from earlier generations, and it was like a helping hand. Quetzalcoatl, you have Viracocha. Guys, there's so much evidence that these ancient societies that we know about today were handed down information. Unfortunately, the Spanish destroyed most of Mayan, Inca, and Aztec culture, and so many of their structures, and almost all of their documentation, same with the Olmecs. So very sad. We don't have a lot of information that we could have. It's the equivalent to burning down the Library of Alexandria in Egypt. But nonetheless, we can try and piece together as much of this as possible. And I find it incredibly interesting. And I know a lot of you guys do too as well. So I will continue looking into it. I'll go to these sites. I'll figure it out. And I'm going to be talking hopefully with Graham Hancock at the end of May as well in California. So anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. All right. I had no idea where I was going with that. Hopefully it turned out okay. I'm going to check my comments here in a moment. I need those electrolytes mixed with cancerous sugars. One moment. Okay, let's see what we got here for comments. Jim, oh come on Josh, are you serious? Oh god, that's not the best joke I've ever seen, but I'll take it. I'm kind of a nerd too. Doug 209, at least Olmeca tequila is still around. Yeah, right, and probably a Spanish tequila, I'm guessing. It is tequila. Of course it's Spanish. Jerry K or Gary K. Can you tell me if it's Jerry or Gary? Because I see you all the time, and I've seen that name pronounced both ways. So I just want to make sure. He says, love watching Josh, WAM. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your comments. You have a lot to say on these, and I'm always happy to answer them and respond to them. But yeah, can you tell me, is it Jerry or Gary? I do not know, and I want to get it right in the future because I end up reading a lot of your comments. Let's see. Path is narrow, says Noah. Yeah. Gary Sear says dodo birds are alive. They are liberals. That's one. That sounded so much like one of my teachers in school when I was younger would call people dodo birds. Jerry, or which one did I say first? Gary, Jerry? I'm thinking it's Jerry. It seems like it's Jerry. He said the first one. I'm not sure. Anyway, yeah, send in your comments, guys. Usually I can't even keep up with it. Email sender says, are we dying? Everyone's dying. I don't know. What happens when we die? I'm not sure. I don't know. Bert Flisberg says, having David Lizardman on your show and dissing Q, really? Oh my god. Do you know, I've gotten over 1,000 death threats for talking about QAnon. Over 1,000 death threats. Very civilized, guys. Very, very civilized. Look, I don't agree with QAnon. I've seen the posts on Reddit and 4chan showing, before Q's first post ever, people talking about how they were going to troll Trump supporters by making up this thing called QAnon and then say they were white hats and stuff. And we've seen this before. We saw this under Obama, similar white hat scenarios, under Bush as well. And this whole trust the plan, be apathetic thing, no, people are saying, oh, well, we're learning a lot from it, so we're not being apathetic. Yes, you are, because what you're quote-unquote learning is a psyop, and you are sitting back and waiting for everyone to do things for you. Look, I have nothing against people believing in Q. I'm just saying I don't believe in Q. I don't think it's real. I followed it since day one. I've seen it since the day the first post went up. And I don't agree with it because there's every bit of evidence that it's a psyop when they're telling you to sit and relax and be complacent, which is basically what they're doing. Sit back, we're going to arrest George Soros and Hillary Clinton and all these people. Meanwhile, Mueller, or what's that guy's name? That guy that was on Trump's campaign, I always forget his name, starts with an M or something. Anyway, he's looking at a really long prison sentence. Roger Stone was arrested. And Trump continues to bomb countries. He says, we're pulling out of Syria. And then the news attacks him for that wrongly. But then I said, well, let's sit back and wait a second. And then what happens? He announces, oh, we're going to stay in Syria in order to protect Israel and protect the world. His words. Protect Israel and protect the world. And the news doesn't cover it, including CNN, because they're too busy promoting garbage, nonsense, crap. Anyway, it's just Bert Flisberg, how do you know? How do you know Q is real? There's literally no evidence. There's coincidences, convenience. That's all there is. Meanwhile, more crap is happening to Trump, and all the people, anywhere related to him in any way, more terrible things are happening to them than people outside of that. I mean, it's not going very well, and he continues to bomb babies, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not going to trust the plan while people drop bombs on babies' heads. It's horrible. I'm sick of this. I've been going on about this since the days of Bush, and people always find a way to be dependent and stick to their leader. They want to have a leader so badly. They so badly want to be dependent. They so badly want someone to do something for them, so they're comfortable, so they don't have to worry, so they can sit back and go, oh, people are handling it for us. Bert Flisberg, you paid off? Me paid off? I'm paid off for having a different opinion than you? Look, I'm a conspiracy theorist, as they call it. I believe that most of the major events that we've seen over the years are false flags. That doesn't mean that when I don't like a stupid theory that's clearly been debunked over and over again, that I'm paid off. It's so absurd to call everyone you don't agree with paid off and shills. That's how you get discredited, just like you're getting discredited by pushing the Q narrative, which, fine, to each their own. I have friends that believe in Q. I do not, and I'm not going to, because I have seen no evidence. If they can provide me with some evidence, I might, and I still won't agree with it, because I don't believe in waiting for government to do things for us. I believe in individuals acting on their own, being responsible and self-sustainable. It's not rocket science, guys. Really, I don't know. Every single time I step out a little bit and say, look, I know it's popular to believe this thing, but I don't believe it. Every time that happens, I must be an Israeli shill, Zionist, or whatever that's paid off by somebody. If I was paid off, I wouldn't have posted that David Icke video about Q and gotten so heavily shadow banned and punished for weeks afterwards, cutting my pay ridiculously to the point where I can barely afford to eat. And on top of that, have countless people unsubscribe to me. Do you know how many people unsubscribe to me? Because people have one disagreement with me, and for that reason, they're just like, screw you, I'm never watching your videos again, even though you posted over 1,000 of them, and, even though you post 1 to 4 videos every single day, one of those things I disagreed with, so I'm going to plug my ears, cover my eyes, and cover my mouth. That is what is the equivalent of what happened after I stepped out and said, look, I don't agree with Q. Bert Flisberg says, I'll do my own research just like Q recommended, and what I see, he's right. What is with so many of the people in the Q community only writing in capital letters? Sorry. What? Anyway, I'm just being honest. I'm not here to be popular. This has never been a popularity contest to me. Never. If it was about a popularity contest, I toe the line of the mainstream and I would make so much money. I would get so many viewers. I would reach so many people. I would be a millionaire if I towed the line. But I don't want to. I want to sleep at night. So I'm not going to support something just because it's popular to believe. I'm not going to do that. No one can pay me. I've been offered money before. I've always turned it down. I've had state-run media in Canada offer to pay me to do host a morning show years ago. $75,000 a year. That's a hell of a lot more than I make today. And way more than I made back then when I made almost nothing. I was almost homeless doing this. And I turned them down because I want to be able to sleep at night. I won't take money from taxpayers and I won't sit there and read a script. And I never will. So yes, I don't like Q, I don't believe in Q. And even if I believed Q existed, I still would not support waiting for government to do things. That is just me. That's not me being paid off. That is quite the opposite. I could take money to promote these stupid ideas, but I don't because I don't believe in it. Simple as that. Anyway. Sorry guys, I had to give my little spiel on this because I have been getting attacked and death threats for weeks over this. And because of it, my YouTube channel has taken a huge hit, which isn't exactly the equivalent of, being paid to do something and, mainstream promoting it, because the mainstream media and YouTube and Google completely shadow banned me for daring to speak out against Q. Anyway. Yeah, you should see some of the stuff. People talking about how they're going to find me on the streets and kill me, slit my throat, stab me, butcher me. Some people have been saying things that are so disgusting I can't even say on camera. And saying things about my family as well. But anyway. Matthew Arness says, what the hell is Q? I wish I had that problem. It's a good problem to have, don't worry. But yeah, look into it if you want. It's up to people as individuals. Wherever the rabbit hole leads you. Rebel Glory says, holy crap, Josh is a real deal. I appreciate it. I'm just saying what I believe, and I lose a lot of viewership because of it, but I don't really care. It's all about bringing people the truth as I see it, and I'll provide the evidence when I have it and try and promote the idea of individual freedom and responsibility, which is the most important thing to me. Miranda says, take it easy. You're sort of riled up tonight. I'm always riled up. You should, my heart rate. I went to a doctor a while back ago because in October, someone tried to poison me. Long story. Anyway, I did a video on it at the time. And I ended up in the hospital. And they're like, your heart rate is, after the fact, after I kind of recovered from the whole thing, they're like, your heart rate is way too fast. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, this and that. It's regular for me. I've always had a really fast heart rate because I just get way too into this kind of stuff. And that's why I do this. And that's why I have a passion. That's why I've done it for so many years. I did it for so many years without making a cent. Thanks to help from a few people in my family. Mr. B, Top Man Josh, ignore the usual turd trolls. I try to. But I in a way, I kind of enjoy answering the more critical questions more than anything. Because, we could all preach to the choir all day. It's nice to have some disagreements. Stephen A. Bert is probably a bot. Someone calls Sarah Connor. Oh, man. Anyway, Brian Denham says 1984 is already here. Absolutely. It's worse. It's look at China. China has become so technocratic and crazy, and it perfectly portrays what the Trilateral Commission set out to do back in the 70s under Zbigniew Brzezinski, and then some. It's so brutal. Eddie says Bitcoin $100,000 this year, 1 million 20. I'm guessing you mean 2021 by 2011. 10 million in 2030. Buy and hold, Josh. Yeah, buy, hold, trade. In my opinion, not advice. Come on, guys. Super Sneak USA QAnon is this idea that these white hats are working within the government and telling people for some reason that they're trying to overthrow the New World Order and military-industrial complex and stuff like that from within. And every time anything happens, it's all part of the plan. Trust the plan. Lay back. Wait. You'll see. We're all on a journey to stop the coercive globalists within the ranks, and we're in the ranks, and we're trying to save us all from all this kind of stuff. That's the idea of Q. Basically, these white hats that are there to save people that are anonymous, but for some reason they're telling everyone that they're doing this stuff publicly, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm sure the QAnon people have some excuse for that. Anyway, Bert says, no, not bought from Alberta, Edmonton, welder, last 40 years. Okay. Yeah, I don't actually think you're a bot. It's just a funny joke. Sarah Connor, Terminator, that movie. And, yeah. Anyway, T-Pro 1115 says, you obviously haven't followed it much. See, another QAnon person who just writes in all capitals. See what I mean? So weird. You obviously haven't followed it much. I've been following it since day one. If you caught me earlier, I mentioned how there's literally posts on Reddit and 4chan talking about how they're going to create this QAnon thing. Before, what? The chat was just disconnected. What? Oh, great. Now they're going to use this against me and claim that I did this. Okay, there we go. It's connected again. Anyway, so there are literally people talking about how they're going to create this fake thing called Q, pretend to be white hats to troll Trump supporters before the first Q post. Anyway, Jerry says, Josh is genuine. I'm trying to be very annoyed by some of these. Like, it's always capital letters, and half of them have like a billion commas like between words for no reason. Like, so weird. Like, I don't know. It just seems like MK Ultra stuff. T-Pro 1115 says, bad eyes, moron. That's why the caps. Yeah, that's okay. Bad eyes. Okay, whatever. It just seems like you're yelling all the time. I don't know what bad eye, like, it barely makes a difference. Anyway, Bert Flisberg says, I also have to say, I like your show and been following you 1 year. You taught me a lot about finance. I appreciate that. I just wish I wasn't constantly called a paid shill because I have different opinions. It's very counterproductive to our movement and discredits us when we call everyone that slightly disagrees with us paid shills. It's really, really absurd. Like, I say I'm against the state of Israel, and people are like, you are a Muslim shill. And then I'm like, I'm also against all governments and all that kind of stuff. And then other people are like, you're a Jewish shill working for Israel. And it's like, anyway, Mr. B says, oh, he sent 10 pounds. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really appreciate that. He says, could be worse, Josh. Could be with us in the UK getting ducked over. I'm glad there's a spell check thing there because I get shadow banned when I say that word. Unfortunately, YouTube nowadays. But he says, getting ducked over by the EU banksters. Brexit, no deal needed here. Yeah, it's really brutal what's happening. The UK has been in this incremental frog boil longer than the U.S., in my opinion. It's been going downhill for longer than the U.S. I remember the movie Terror Storm years ago, which I'm not like a huge fan of Alex Jones or anything, but I remember back in the day watching Terror Storm and being like, man, this is amazing, because it really broke down the issues of the surveillance and police state in the UK and how they were kind of moving ahead of the curve and almost like a test ground for the United States. Now it seems China's a test ground, the UK follows, and then like Sweden and Australia, and then the United States and Canada, etc. It's really bad. And yeah, of course, these EU bureaucrats, ECB bureaucrats, these European Commission bureaucrats that aren't elected. And I don't even care if they're elected. Like, the issue is, even if they're elected, they're still coercive, organized crime, mobsters, either way. But it just adds to the example of people have no control. They are being completely led to the slaughter like pawns sacrificed for the king and the queen. And it needs to be stopped, and it needs to be stood up against. And protests aren't going to change anything, because protests always and revolutions always lead to bigger government and control. And protests are usually asking for the government to do something, and the government isn't going to solve the problems of government. But with that said, I think that people standing up for themselves and using the power of individual demand, utilizing technology to create new marvels that replace the old guard is really important, and not ignoring that very real possibility. I've done videos on it with Sterling Lujan. Sterling Lujan, initially from Bitcoin.com, great anarchist, speaker, philosopher, definitely someone you should check out, psychological analyst or anarchist. We talked about that, and Venezuela is a great example outside of the attacks on them by the United States government and the tyrants in power themselves in Venezuela, Maduro or Juan Guaido, this IMF guy. Anyway, Miranda, Josh, you married? No, why not? I do got a lady. I've been with my lady for 2.5 years now, and very happily so. I've worked too much. I feel bad for her sometimes. I'm just constantly working. But we go a lot of nice and cool places, and we're about to head out to Vancouver and then Winnipeg. I'm not happy about Winnipeg, but I'm going to hook up with Dan Dix in Vancouver, and we'll hopefully get a bunch of videos done, press for truth. You guys know what I'm talking about. Jerry Miranda, what does that have to do with it? Rebel Glory, yes, we don't need a revolution, we need an evolution. Absolutely, that's my saying, completely 100%. Be the change, be an individual, and we need to evolve as individuals and break free from the government and organized crime racket complex. And that doesn't mean no government, like I mentioned in earlier reports. That just means no coercive and forced government, voluntary governance under the private contract rather than this social contract which we allegedly signed upon birth, which is absurd. Anyway, I said at the beginning of this video, I'm not going to go long, and here we are, an hour in, almost an hour and 1 minute. I really appreciate everyone sticking with me all this time. Always means a lot. And for the super chats, Aaron and Mr. B, thank you very much. Again, I do find it very interesting that we have 68 viewers out of, 115,000 people, but nonetheless, our subscriptions have been dropping like a rock lately. It's so brutal. We got a super chat from Kathy Roper, who has just, I think, got on board with a subscribe star, I do believe. I just sent you a message. Great job, she says. Honest and well-informed. Just keep telling the truth as you see it. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your support. It really means a lot. And I really appreciate all you guys helping me, because, I mean, we couldn't do it without you. It's gotten to this point. It's a bear market in crypto. We are getting completely shadow banned by YouTube to this extent where it's giving me chest pains every day when I have to work 17 hours a day already as it is. And then it's like, oh, I guess I have to do, instead of 1 video a day, 2 to 4 videos a day, maybe 5, in order to keep up with this, and still getting less viewers. And my subscription's dropping every day. Like, it goes up to 30 by 7 a.m. or 50 by 7 a.m. And then I look for the whole day on Social Blade later on. It's like, oh, actually, no, it's only up 30 for the whole day. You've lost subscribers since 7 a.m. And, oh, man. I don't know. It's brutal. Bert Flisberg says, is he a shill for Clinton, or who is? Barr? Who's Barr? Like Roseanne Barr? I don't know. I'm missing some of the chat. I apologize if I'm kind of out of the loop on this kind of stuff. I've missed a few things. But anyway, Crypto Futures sent $5. Can I send you a video of the material they put in front of the sun? Could you interview me via Google Hangout regarding my video? I think, are you the man that I talked to at Anarchapulco about this weird, like, artificial sun? Craziest video, guys. It sounds so over the top and crazy. But I saw the craziest video at Anarchapulco. This man showed me a viewer. I believe, are you the same guy? He showed me this video that he took on his cell phone. And, he says no. Okay. I talked to someone, and it's like this material that they put in front of the sun in order to make it reflect in a bunch of different places to help agriculture and stuff like that. And it made it look like there was a really bright sun, but the sun is dimmed. And so apparently there's a lot of documentation. They put up this mirror thing in space that reflects it, puts more light on places like California, and causes plants to grow faster and stuff, because there's a huge die-off in farms across the country. It's the weirdest thing. I have to break it down better. I need to look into it more. But I'm telling you guys, like, there's evidence that there are artificial suns reflecting the sun to make it brighter. And people have video of like the sun suddenly going whoop, moving over and stuff. And no, not flat earth stuff. Seriously, not flat earth stuff. I'm saying that there appears to be evidence that for some reason, without telling us, they put this mirror thing in space. Anyway, if you look up artificial sun, it looks like a bee comb, kind of a honeycomb thing that they have, like a circular honeycomb thing floating in space. Super strange, guys. But again, I don't want to go too crazy on you guys right now. Crypto Future says, can I get your email? Absolutely. worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. I'm going to write it in the comments here. worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. And by the way, if you send subject line yes to that email, I will add you to our newsletter, which helps us keep in contact with people once we end up getting completely kicked off YouTube inevitably. But yeah, that's subject line yes to worldalternativemedia@gmail.com. Our website's up and running at worldalternativemedia.com for anyone interested. You guys can check that out. We are going to be updating it soon. Big shout out to Aaron Nakamoto and Kingsley Edwards, the not crypto couple. On YouTube and elsewhere. Anyway, my voice is starting to go. I got to go for a meeting on going to Mauritania right away. As I mentioned earlier, I want to run over to Africa for a little while. I've already booked tickets to Spain and everything. Very cheap, like ridiculously cheap if you book each ticket separately. But my plan is to go and explore potentially Atlantis or debunk it. I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to the ground. Bright Insight on YouTube. You said $1,000 for anyone that went there, so I'm going to go there with a 4K camera and get some footage. So your videos are monetized on YouTube, and I see that you have millions of followers, so yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. But I'm very interested in going to the reshot structure. It's going to be super cool, and I'm going with a whole bunch of people, a whole group of people, and I can't wait. And that's what I'm going to a meeting for right away. I should check my phone to see if he messaged me. Not yet. Getting late. But anyway, I know it's really late on the East Coast and people want to go to bed. I know it is Friday night, so much like myself, you are inside and watching YouTube and stuff like that. I feel the pain. But I'm done with the reports. I did want to do another one on cannabis. I'll do that another time. I got to leave in less than 2 days, in a day and a half, to go to Canada, so I won't have a whole lot of time, so I got to get all these videos prepared and ready to go. Check out the John McAfee interview that we posted earlier today. I have videos going up tomorrow as well, several of them, and also make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to press like below, hit the notification bell. Please hit the notification bell. It's you might get notified if YouTube allows it, but either way, it gives us a bit more security and all that. And helps us reach people as they're heavily shadow banning. Check back as much as you can. It's getting really bad. Again, for those wondering, Bitcoin address right there. If anyone wants a tip, we just had our 6th birthday here at World Alternative Media. We had a lot of people tune in a few days ago. I really appreciate it. And then we also have video up, like I mentioned, with a new interview with John McAfee. I'm getting stuttery here because I'm tired. John McAfee and by Chris Rice Crypto on YouTube. And also we have other people that are joining us right away as contributors at WAM and reporters doing interviews as well. I believe we have an interview with creator of Monero coming up real soon here at WAM, so stay tuned for that. And we are doing a weekly show with G. Edward Griffin starting right away. At the end of March, which is coming up faster than I'd like. These days, time goes by way too fast. It's kind of scary. But make the best of it. That's what we try to do, and try and do as much in the time we have on this planet as we possibly can. And hopefully we leave it off in a better condition than it was when we entered. So anyway, again, thank you for joining us here on YouTube, World Alternative Media, WAM News Live. And until next time, see, I'm getting way too tired. I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.